let me kind of reset, folks. So we saw this began with Officer Coronado. We thought he was going to retake the stand. Retired Sergeant Coronado, he did not take the stand. The prosecutors and defense decided not to continue. And then we saw testimony this morning from DPS investigators. And then we've had this DPS investigator on the stand, who created this animation, which seemed especially powerful. But then we've seen this testimony drag on. Ashley, just talk to me about what you think about what we've seen over the last today and the last couple hours.
I will say it's been a lot to process. Before lunch, I really feel like Nico did a great job at, pinpointing issues with the timeline, pinpointing critical information that was missing from the timeline, and then also just pointing out some inconsistencies with the information that was used to put the animation together and the whole investigation with that. And I think he did a great job. And then we come back after lunch, and I feel like now we're just repeating those points again and again and again. To what end,
Yeah, I didn't understand that either. And this went on for 2 hours, and I kept thinking, he's going to wrap it up, and we're going to get redirect, and maybe a little bit more recross, and then we're going to, and then because we were expecting the state to rest today, and that didn't happen. And now the judge is saying, be here at 8:30 in the morning to this jury, and be prepared to work till 5:30, and bring your lunches. So this is a judge who's planning for a long slog next week. And so I don't know. What do you think about where things stand right now with this trial?
I think they still stand more favorable for defense. I will say I felt more strongly about that before lunch. After lunch, I do feel like Nico was hammering in on the trooper, and I don't feel like the trooper did himself any favors at all with the way he was not running to respond to questions and really creating this distrust and just confusion, and really mainly distrust with all he's done, the work that he's done.
Well, and also just like, Nico asking, did you hear my question? And him saying, the investigator, did you hear my answer? And, just being argumentative, which is, not necessarily a good look for the jury. And then the other thing that was like, this whole question of, about did Mendoza and Saucedo and Coronado had time to act to keep the shooter from going in the school, and just essentially this, he kind of digging in his heels, and he said, the investigator said, I'm just saying he had the opportunity and access to more information. And I'm like, really? Did he have more access to opportunity and information? Because he didn't have line of sight. They had line of sight. It seems like it speaks to the chaotic nature of this situation that was going on.
It was very chaotic. And that's what Nico had pulled out, from the witness before lunch, that it was chaotic. And again, Adrian Gonzalez didn't know what he was going into. He was going into this almost blindly. He knew there was an accident. He knew there was someone with a gun, but that's all he knew. And then he pulls up to the scene and it's chaos.
Right. It just seems like the investigator would have been better just to acknowledge, yeah, they could have taken the shot. Yes, they had an opportunity. They didn't take it. Adrian, he could have said, Adrian also had an opportunity from his end of things to act differently. And I don't know. It's sort of this digging in of your heels. It seemed problematic. And of course, we had the testimony yesterday from Coronado where, as Tolly said, and you agreed, that felt like that they basically turned him into a defense witness. And so it's somewhat shocking to me that this trial is still going on. You and I, when we were listening to the testimony, were talking about Dallas County judges. They would this would be like, can we move it along, folks?
Right.
And so, because it feels like sometimes, especially this afternoon, just dragging on and on and on.
Yeah, I think Nico was given a lot of latitude, and that's just kind of how it's been through this trial. And I've had, trials here in Dallas County. I've had them in surrounding counties and a small county down south as well. But we weren't given so much latitude. It was very much reined in, like, hey, are you going to make your point? How many days do you anticipate this trial to be? All those things are worked out ahead of time.
Right.
And this is just playing on.
Yeah, and a lot of times judges will be like, well, essentially you've already made that point. How much longer are you going to go? And they can be rather, I've seen judges be rather pointed about that. So that was the hard part for me to understand why I've seen throughout this trial both sides do that, where they'll make a good point and then they'll make it 3 or 4 more times.
Right.
And I'm like, it almost does it lose its effectiveness when you do that?
I was just thinking that when they make the point, it's so effective and you're like, wow, that was great. But then when you make it again and again and again, and it gets repetitive, and it loses that value because you're just bringing it out repeatedly, and they're making great points. They'll go off to another series of events, and then circle right back to where we started.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to understand, and obviously on Tuesday we will be continuing with the cross-examination of this witness, and then we'll have redirect, and maybe the prosecution will rest on Tuesday, but at this point I honestly have no idea how much longer this trial's going to go. I've kind of given up on prognosticating at this point. But I want to thank folks out there for watching our gavel-to-gavel coverage of this trial. And if you missed any of our testimony or analysis throughout the proceedings, you can go back and get caught up on our YouTube channel or right here on our Plus app. We will be right back Tuesday morning, and our coverage will start at 8 a.m. See you then.